All right, so recording is on. So hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today at another one of our WLEAD Speaker Series events where we invite respected local leaders in our community to share their stories in hopes of inspiring others to do great things. Today we have with us Gretchen Fauske. Gretchen is the Associate Director at the UAA Center for Economic Development and has a passion for small business, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Today, she'll share her journey, her views on leadership, and insights into private, political, and governmental drivers that impact our local economy. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gretchen. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's wonderful to get to be here with all of you. I think it's so cool that you have this group and this speaker series. I invited some of my colleagues from the Center for Economic Development to join me as well. Margot, Julie, and Rochelle, I think, are all on. Maybe a couple more, I can't quite tell. I'm not very versed in using Teams, so apologies if I make any team-related blunders. So I currently work at the University of Alaska Center for Economic Development, where we do a mixture of applied research, strategic engagement, and entrepreneur development. I lead our entrepreneurship development and engage on the other tracks that we offer as well. I also do most of our marketing and communications. It's been really wonderful. I wanted to share a little bit of how I got there just to kind of illustrate that careers can be windy, twisty roads. So I graduated from college with a degree in English literature, and my only goal was to get a job working on a dude ranch, because at the time I was really into horses. I had this romantic notion of what ranch life would be like, and I thought I could write the next great novel, in the evenings, which I applied, and lo and behold, nobody hired me because I didn't have any experience with horses or being a camp counselor or doing any of the things that they would actually want from someone that they would hire to work on a dude ranch. So very fortunately, I got a phone call from a family friend who at the time worked for Senator Lisa Murkowski and said, our intern coordinator fell through for the summer. We really need someone. Can you get on a plane now? And I said, no, I have to graduate first, but I'll fly out the day after I graduate. And so I finished up my college experience in a sleepy town called Walla Walla in Washington, hopped on a plane, and spent the next 2 years in Washington, D.C. That summer, I drove a van full of interns all over, which was really traumatizing for a girl who came from Alaska and then again lived in a small town in rural Walla Walla that didn't have freeways or traffic or anything of that sort. And so that was kind of horrifying, but it was an incredible experience. I learned so much about working and living in a big city, and it was wonderful. So at the end of the summer, I was hired on as a full-time staffer. And so that's how I finished my time there for 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, I realized I was ready to move back to Alaska. My super cheesy joke is that the wildlife of DC scared me more than the wildlife of Alaska. And I really, really missed home, and I developed a true appreciation for what Alaska has to offer, which, in my opinion, is the ability to be more present in shaping your career, because we're so small, although we're geographically huge. As we all know, it's really easy to get in touch with your leadership. If you want to make a change, you can make the change. If you try really hard, there's virtually no one that you won't be able to get a meeting with. And so when it comes to building a career, I think Alaska is an incredible place to do that. And it's been very, very rewarding for me personally. When I moved back, I worked in marketing for 6 years for an architecture and engineering company. And during that time, it was a really formative time. I had an incredible boss who invested in my growth, in my skills, helped me kind of navigate what I truly wanted to do, which, although I enjoyed marketing, I realized that my real passion was in community and economic development. And I don't really believe in luck. I believe in making your own luck, and I believe that you can invest in your network and your skills to be in the right place at the right time. But I was a little bit lucky in getting my next job because I was in the right place at the right time. And so I, once again, the the job that I was interested in was looking for someone. They hadn't found the right fit. And I happened to be, my name came up and they interviewed me. And so it was to work as a business development officer at the state of Alaska for the Division of Economic Development. And so that was when I first began to do economic development work. And so they hired me as a marketing person focusing on economic development, which isn't quite as normal. I think often you hire researchers or economists or business people to do economic development. So I was really fortunate that they recognized a need for someone with skills in marketing and communications. So I was there for 5 years, and during that time, built my network, really grew my expertise in economic development, and developed relationships that helped me do my next job, which is at the University Center for Economic Development, where Nolan is our executive director, and he and I collaborated on a number of projects. And when he realized he needed someone to fill the associate director role, he reached out, and it happened to be the right timing for me. And I had the luxury of being able to say, I have a job I like, but politics is kind of crazy. People are always shifting. It can be a little bit of a wild ride. And I was a political appointee, and I realized that I had an opportunity to kind of control my own destiny and say, I like this person. I want to work with this person. I like the people he's hired. And so I think it's a real luxury when you get to a point in your career where you can say, the people I work with matter. The people I surround myself with are almost more important, or at least just as important as the kind of work you're doing. And so I had the luxury of being able to say, yes, I want this, joining the team, and then being able to help build the team going forward. So I'm terribly biased. My coworkers all know this, but I think we have a really wonderful team here. We trust each other. We believe in the concept of psychological safety, that we can do our best work when we feel safe and secure, and we can fail in front of each other, and that's okay. And we can also celebrate each other's wins and help each other grow. And so I've been incredibly lucky to work here at the Center for Economic Development. So that's my career journey so far. I've done a few other things along the way. I wrote a blog for 5 years called Gretchen Loves Anchorage, and that was really about sort of microeconomic development in a way, where oftentimes people say they focus on the negatives of Anchorage, and I think there's just so much to love here. And I really wanted to highlight that because it's often the negative things that get the most attention. And when you're doing community and economic development, you realize how important it is to get those positive messages out there and how people really understand what the good things of a place are too. And so I wrote that for 5 years. It was so much fun and really opened up my network, the people I knew, the experiences I could have, and helped me realize again that just because you're not being fulfilled through work, you can find fulfillment in it. And not to say I wasn't fulfilled at work, because I was, but I had some creative energies that needed an outlet. And so I found it through the blog, and it really inspired me to kind of keep pushing on things that I thought were fun. And so throughout the years, I've done a few things. I created a conference called Adventure Her, another really cheesy term, but we brought up some films from the No Man Land Film Festival focusing on women in the outdoors. We had a little market of women creating outdoor products and some micro adventures planned. And it was really fun in a way to celebrate people who, like women who like being outside, and kind of focusing on some of those issues around what that can mean sometimes. I've done a couple art shows, more on that later. I have brought some entrepreneurial films focusing on women to the state as well, so people can kind of get a different take on entrepreneurship. And so I think my point there, I'm rambling a little bit, but is not everything has to be done at work. If you want to grow something or learn something or do something, you can develop something outside of work and see what happens with it. And it's kind of fun, creative endeavors. So I don't think anyone should ever feel pigeonholed. And often doing a project like that, or saying you want to serve on a board or some way, is one of the best ways to meet new people and try new things and build your skill sets and to grow in that way. So I have served on a few boards. I was part of the library advisory board for the municipality for 6 years. I was part of the Launch Alaska board for 6 years, and I'm currently serving as chair for the Anchorage Downtown Partnership. And so each of those experiences, I've learned so much. It's really wonderful to be part of organizations you care about. And I always feel that I get more out of it than I give, which isn't a good way to feel, because we're giving of our time and our expertise. But I think it is important to recognize that when you engage in those things, you do get a lot out of it too, because you can grow, you can meet new people, you can be part of issues you really care about. And so if anyone's thinking about joining a board or board service, I would encourage you to do that. I also write articles for the Journal of Commerce, which is really rewarding and a way to kind of get my perspective out there and share more about economic development. And so I would kind of summarize my career by saying, you can, if you think that there's an opportunity or a niche that needs filling, sometimes you can be the person who fills it. So for the Journal of Commerce, I didn't see that they were writing about economic development topics or entrepreneurship topics in the way that I wanted them to. And so I decided, why not me? So once a month, I write an article there, and it's really, really fun. I meet great people. It's fun to sort of share an economic developer's perspective on the economy and that kind of thing. So that was a somewhat rambling bio. That's my professional bio. I wanted to pause for questions before I get to the next part of my presentation. If anyone has questions or comments or something they want to know more about, please jump in.
Do anyone on the call have a question so far?
I have a question. This is Terry. What would you say are some of the toughest decisions you've had to make in your career?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. And it's so broad too. Are you thinking specifically in making choices about new jobs, or you have
Yeah, in your career. I'm thinking more about your career path. Yeah. Yeah,
thank you for that. That is a really great question. I think tough decisions. It was hard for me to leave the state to work for the university because I might be a slow learner, but after 5 years, I felt like I'd gotten really good at what I was doing, and I knew how to do it. And so I was old enough that it was a little bit scary to think about starting something new. And going back to being the new person, you're at the beginning, because the economic development done at a state level is different than the economic development done at a university level. It just is slightly different focuses. And so it was a little bit scary to think about being the new person again. And, anytime you're leaving what is comfortable and what you know, there can be a little bit of fear there. I also took a pay cut, which is, like, we don't really like to talk about money, but money is something that informs many of our career choices. And so I had to think long and hard about, is it worth it? Do I want to do that? It wasn't like a make or break pay cut, but it was, I want to say around $20,000 worth of a pay cut. And so that's a chunk of change that matters. But at the same time, I thought about what the rewards were, and actually that's a great segue into what I'm talking about next, which is how do you define success? And so I guess I'll pause there, and then did we want to do slides, or were we going to skip the slides?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay, cool. That's a perfect segue. Thank you, Terry. Because what I ended up doing for all of you is putting together some lessons that I've learned, some things that have shifted my perception throughout my career that I wanted to share with all of you, and then sort of chat through them. So the first one is, how do you define success? And so when I left the state to join the university, I was kind of at a point in my career where I was thinking about what success really meant to me. It kind of rocked my world to think about, and it's the next slide. I think a shift in perspective is kind of like the overview of what I'm sharing with you. To think that everyone defines success differently, and that I can create my own definition of what success means to me. And so even though I was, feeling a little bit of fear around being the new person again, a little bit of like uncertainty around taking a pay cut, especially, I'm in my high earning years, and that matters. I also thought about what success meant to me. And I have realized, I didn't have a full definition then, but for me, success means doing work that's creative and interesting, and I feel like it can help people and truly make an impact. It's being part of a team that I really enjoy collaborating with and I trust. And it's also being able to experience art, music, fashion, travel, good food, and have the time to do that and have the time to engage in a community that inspires me and makes me feel happy of friends and family. And so all of those things, I recognize that working at the university, which would give me a more flexible schedule, I wouldn't be quite as involved in the politics surrounding economic development, which is it's really interesting, but sometimes energy draining. I decided that it was worth it. And so even though I had some fear around that and it was a tough decision, in the end, I think it was the right decision, which is something I didn't put in here as one of my perception shifts, but that I think is really important is to think about when people say, oh, I made the right choice. I don't really believe in right choices and wrong choices. I just apart from, it's not the right choice to steal or, hurt someone ever. But when you're talking about career, I think you make a choice, you make the best choice you can with the information that you have. And then anytime you're sitting there thinking I made the wrong choice, that's a little bit reductive, right? You have no idea what the other path or paths would look like. There's just the choice that you made. And so I feel very positive about the choice that I made in coming to work for the university. I'm very, very happy with it. So with that, I wanted to pause and ask all of you who are attending today, not everyone has to answer, but I'm hoping a couple people will, what success means to you. I'm trying to get comfortable with silence, so I'm just going to sit here until at least a couple people share.
I have not think about that in a while. So I guess what success means to me as far as in a career perspective?
Any perspective.
Any perspective.
A life perspective. I believe in a work-life blend. I think it's a false thing to separate the two into distinct parts because it's really just all part of your life.
Yeah, I guess an element of that would be, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you dread the day or not? So if you're generally wake up and you're like, oh yeah, another day, let's just get at it. I think that probably on a good track there.
That's a really good
life.
And Maria, I agree. This is Terry. I feel like success to me is being fulfilled and happy, as far as my career goes, like waking up in the morning and being happy to go to work. And at the end of the day, feeling like I've helped people, whether it's in-house or clients or whoever, help make their jobs better or their businesses better. Just having that sense of giving is important to me. So, and really, it's not all about money. I've had jobs before, I've had careers before that I make way more money than I do now, but that's not my main objective right now. So I think it changes over time, that at this point in my life, it's mostly about being grateful to be at work and being happy at work.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It does change based on where you're at in your life. I think it's one of those like constantly changing targets that it's really important to be aware of, because you want to be sort of aligning your actions and how you spend your time with what success means to you. But yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. It's always changing. Does anyone else want to share what success means to them?
I will.
It's different. Everyone, it's different for you. Whoever, sorry, I interrupted you.
I would love to share. I really, first of all of your answers are really inspirational. I'm kind of along the same lines of Terry. Is when I come to work, I supervise other people, and for me, success is their success and their happiness to be there too. It's really important to me that my coworkers and colleagues and the people that I'm with, more than I'm even with my own family, are feeling like they're secure and they're safe. And, it's almost at the beginning of the day, yes, it's a brand new day, but also at the end of the day, I always want to close out that day with that feeling that I helped somebody, or that I communicated really well that day, or, celebrate something that happened in the day. And if I'm able to find that thing to celebrate every day, that's success to me.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. Anyone else want to share?
Gretchen, I'll
share.
add.
Oh, two people. Okay, go for it.
I was just going to comment that I really appreciate that you kind of brought in other areas of your life into success, as far as taking a trip, or, not just career-driven success, which I think is what we end up focusing on so much. How much productivity did I have? And granted, getting your outbox greater than your inbox certainly feels good. So that may be a successful day if it was of value. But I think for me, kind of aligning with you, is I think aligning mind, body, spirit. Just kind of am I feeling fulfilled? Do I have the time with my family, that balance, as well as feeling like I'm contributing in kind of in my day job as well. So kind of all of those areas aligning. And I think a big factor for me as well is growing. Am I growing, or am I stagnating? And that might be culturally or creatively, or globally if I'm traveling, but something to that effect, that there needs to be some growth element with it too. So thanks for asking the question. It's cool to hear other people's perspectives too.
Yeah, I love that definition. Is that Heather?
It is. Hi, Gretchen.
Hi, nice to see you. I can't see people. Oh, there it is. Now I can see names. Yeah, that's fantastic. I love this. The idea of growth as success. That's wonderful. Someone else had chimed in. Who else was that?
This is Allison. Heather, you took a lot of the words out of my mouth, but the thing I think that I'll add is that the definition for success has really changed for me in the last couple years, in terms of it's not big picture of success. It's like day to day with being home and being home with kids, and how just life has shifted with the pandemic. Success to me some days is the fact that nothing got behind. And so I feel like there's more success to celebrate when you're just trying to keep things from going forward versus going backwards. And if you kept things from not going backwards, that's success in a day sometimes too. So success to me has really changed over the last, few years of what it was like to become a parent, and then with the pandemic and everything like that. Success has just really, really changed, and success isn't just a personal thing. It's a success for my family now. That is a different journey. So it's changed over time.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's going back to the idea that our definitions of success are always evolving. And you also touched on something I think that's really important, is how the pandemic changed success for all of us. There's so many articles and thought pieces and podcasts out there about, the long-term impacts of the pandemic and what that means for people. And, we're kind of living a giant experiment right now. I don't think anyone really knows. But I do think it's really important to stay open to how you're feeling and what success means to you through this process. And, success is kind of a fraught word, but then when you listen to each of these different definitions, I just think it can be so expansive and so meaningful to hear how other people define success for them. And I love it. So thank you all for sharing. If anyone else is out there and wants to share, please do. Otherwise, we'll move on.
I'll advance the slide here.
Okay, thanks. So imposter syndrome, this is a hot topic. And it's kind of interesting because as I was thinking about this, I remembered I'd recently read an article by the Harvard Business Review. And it said, stop telling women they have imposter syndrome. In fact, I'll try to drop a link in the chat if other people are interested. So it's kind of interesting because the idea of imposter syndrome, I'm sure most of you know what it means. But it's loosely defined as doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. And it disproportionately impacts high-achieving people who sometimes find it difficult to accept their accomplishments or question when they're getting accolades. And so that's a definition. And I'm going to read this excerpt from the article for you because I think it can kind of inform our conversation going forward. So here we go. Although feelings of uncertainty are an expected and normal part of professional life, women who experience them are deemed to suffer from imposter syndrome. Even if women demonstrate strength, ambition, and resilience, our daily battles with microaggressions, especially expectations and assumptions formed by stereotypes and racism, often push us down. Imposter syndrome as a concept fails to capture this dynamic and puts the onus on women to deal with the effects. Workplaces remain misdirected towards seeking individual solutions for issues disproportionately caused by systems of discrimination and abuses of power. So it kind of takes the onus of a systematic problem and places it on women. So, I'm not quoting from the article anymore, just so you know. and says, oh, you have imposter syndrome. This is something you have to deal with. This is something you need to address for yourself internally. When often the reason you're feeling unsure or fraudulent about something, which that's a real word, but is because of the environment that you're in or the way things have kind of conspired and stacked against you. So I kind of fall in the middle of those. I really do believe imposter syndrome is a thing. I was talking to a coworker earlier today about how I've won a few national awards for my work. It's really, exciting and thrilling. And yet sometimes when I walk in a room, and walk in a room these days means something different, but enter a room full of other economic developers, often men, often who have different areas of expertise than I do, I can sometimes question why I'm there. So then I kind of have to kick myself and say, like, just because I don't offer what they're offering, the thing that I'm offering is just as important as what they can bring to the table. So that's just a small example, but I think it's something like many of us struggle with. And so I've been working on this thing, which I'm like challenging myself and now all of you to own your greatness. I think it's important to recognize what you're good at and share it. It doesn't mean that you're bragging or taking credit. It just means that you are owning what you're great at. And so I want some of you, all of you, whomever wants to speak up, to share something that you're really proud of, or that you're really great at. And this is the reason I want this, is because I think we all need to get in the habit of this. And it is kind of a way to sort of combat feelings of not being good enough, is to recognize you are good enough and here's something I'm really good at. It can be big, it can be small. Share away and take a second to think about it too.
I'm pretty proud of my ability to expand my growth and knowledge on things that interest me, which I don't give myself enough credit for.
I love it. That's so important. That's a good one. Who else?
I can go next, and I'll go ahead and apologize because I'm multitasking and trying to get a walk in, so I'll sound very winded. So my apologies there, but something I'm very proud of with myself is I actually have a teaching background that brought me to where I'm at today. And so one of the things I'm really great at is taking very technical things and explaining them in a way that most anyone can understand.
Oh, that's awesome. That is such an incredible thing to be great at. Good for you. Who else? I'm going to start picking on my coworkers who joined me today if people don't speak up.
This is Terry. I am very, very good at interior design.
Terry.
I'm very good.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I wish I could see pictures of your work. That sounds so wonderful.
I'll send you some.
Please do. I love interior design. It's one of my
I do it as a
favorite
hobby anymore. I was an interior designer for many years, but now I just help friends. But yeah, it's a passion.
That's so cool. I love it. Thank you. Who else?
This is Mandy. I am good at rallying the troops, so to say, fundraising and event planning and getting people to in things both at work, but also community involvement and community planning.
Ooh, nice. That's important. That's really good. I am good at seeing the big picture, and developing a strategy for how I want to accomplish my goals within that picture. That's one thing I'm good at. Who else?
Hi, I'll go next. I'm really good at people skills, and I'm really proud of that. I can adapt to any personality, and I really strive to learn about people to get to a point to where I know where they're gonna fit best and bring out their positive skills they possess. So like I have really good people skills.
Nice. People skills are so important. That's wonderful. So is the art of the friendly nudge, which I see is happening in the chat. Anyone else want to share something they're good at?
So anytime I get asked this question, the first thing I think of, and one of the only things, because it gets stuck in my brain, is that I can type really fast. And I feel like that's such a cop-out, because really when I sit down and think about it, it's really hard for me to find things that I think I'm good at. So I always kind of just like go to that. I know I'm probably good at other stuff, but that's the one that always jumps in and tackles me.
Okay, so number one, being able to type fast is like a great superpower. So don't dismiss it. And number two, I will challenge you to think about other things you're good at, because I'm positive there are other things. But that's a good one. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is perfection is the enemy of progress. I think this is something originally said by Winston Churchill. And it is something that I really believe in. It's related to imposter syndrome, or in general, just a need to feel like something has to be perfect before you can share it or move forward. A little anecdote for you is I recently met a photographer, and she probably wouldn't call herself a photographer, but we were hanging out and she had a couple drinks and she said, "Oh yeah, what I really love is photography. I want to become a professional photographer." I said, "Oh, where's your website? I'd love to see it." She said, "Oh, I don't have one. I feel like I need to be perfect before I can start sharing my work." And then she shared some of her work with me that was just on her phone, and it was incredible. She was so talented, just as talented as some of the other professional photographers I see around the internet. And I couldn't find anything with her work that said imperfection to me, but when she looked at it, she thought it was imperfect. And so she's, in my opinion, she's just kind of stuck in this place where her goal is to become a professional photographer, but she doesn't want to seek out clients or share it with anyone who could potentially become a client, because she's stuck thinking that it has to be perfect first. And in her own mind, her own definition of perfect, because it was really, really good. Which kind of makes me sad for her and kind of reinforces this idea that perfection is the enemy of progress, because sometimes you just have to get something out there. You'll learn from what people say, you'll keep building, you'll keep improving, you'll keep growing. But if you spend all of your time trying to get perfect, it's kind of like you jump ahead to the end, and then what's left? Also, another thing is I don't really believe in perfection. I mean, what is perfection, right? What does that even mean? And so I think it's just something I keep in mind if I'm stuck on something or I don't think it's good enough to share yet. And my coworkers who are in this meeting know that sometimes if I'm working on a big writing project or something, I don't want to share it with anyone yet, because wow, is it a mess? And there's that vulnerability of sharing something when it's not quite the way you want it. But every single time I push myself to say, okay, it's not perfect, but I'm going to ask Rochelle to take a look at this. She'll give me some comments. Every single time I do that, it's infinitely better than if I had just sat there and kept it close and didn't share it. And so I think that's something that we should all just keep in mind. That was a perception shift for me, was sort of like it's okay to be vulnerable and share the messy side of work or life, because you get feedback and help from people around you. During the pandemic, I've always loved art. I hadn't created art, unless you count writing, for a really long time. And during the pandemic, I figured out how to use my iPad and Apple Pencil and started doing digital drawings, and it was so much fun. I mean, I spent all of my free time using this new platform, and I just loved it so much. And at first I was scared to share it. And then I kind of thought, okay, perfection is the enemy of progress. I'm proud of these. I'm excited about these. I want to share them. And so I started sharing them, and I got great feedback, and I actually entered one in a national competition, and it was selected. And so that was even more great feedback. And now I'm doing an art show. And so none of that would have happened if I kind of stuck in the place of saying, I don't want to share. I'm too scared to share. I feel too vulnerable. And so I would challenge all of you to let people see your mess. You can be the messy person. I am a messy person, but I'm always made better by when I sort of combat that. Thank you, Tiana. Okay. Also, Melissa, who said, You're good at being bossy. There's this great conversation around the term bossy as it applies to women, and men are very seldom told that they're bossy. They're just told that they have great executive level skills. So you're good at being executive level and a leader, is what I would say, unless you like the term bossy, and then you can use it. Okay. Next slide. So feedback is a gift. That's something we use a lot at work. We work with entrepreneurs. I mentioned that I lead our entrepreneurship development team. And so we're often working with people who have an idea, who are just starting to kick the tires on it, and they need people to help them figure out how to test that idea, how to grow that idea, whether they should pivot into something else. And so we're very, very feedback driven in the people we work with, but also within our own team. Feedback can be really scary, both giving it and receiving it. It kind of is another little bit of the vulnerability. But at the same time, it's part of learning and growing. And so if you reframe it as a gift and not an attack, because feedback not given well can feel like an attack sometimes. It's not meant to be. Most of the time someone's giving you feedback, it's because they want to help you improve or they notice something. And so welcome feedback as a gift. And Margot, who's on this call, is part of my team, and her joke is that sometimes some gifts you receive you might want to re-gift or think about and then put in the garbage. So you don't have to accept all feedback, but it's really useful. I'm good at organized chaos too. Looking at the chat, I think that's the state in which I live my life. So I just wanted to pause really quickly on the feedback piece and see if anyone wanted to share. Has anyone ever given you a piece of feedback that was transformative to you?
Hey, Gretchen, this is Margot. Sorry if there's a feedback.
Thank you.
So yeah, I work with Gretchen at the Center for Economic Development, and I say feedback is a gift, just like some gifts you love, some gifts you say thank you and then put aside, and some you want to re-gift. But I think that a piece of feedback that I got that was really transformative for me was helping me separate my identity from the work that I do. I feel like a lot of us often, if you're, in a career and you really love it and are really passionate, it's natural for your identity to get wrapped up into the work that you do. So for example, if, doing economic development work or teaching is how I identify, then if I get feedback that somebody said, I didn't think you were a very good teacher, what they might be getting at is they were confused, they didn't like the content, they didn't feel engaged, they didn't like the delivery of what I was doing. But naturally, I'm going to take that as a very personal attack. That's going to feel very personal. So helping others give feedback that essentially, if I can allow myself to listen and try not to be instantly defensive, I can often find nuggets within feedback that will be really, really good to help me move forward. So part of not being defensive is realizing, they might be trying to give me good feedback, and to not instantly say, well, you're making a big diss on my identity as a teacher or an economic developer, and instead try to dig in and see what nugget might be in there. But that's hard. It's very hard to naturally listen and not be defensive when somebody's giving you maybe critical feedback.
Thank you so much for that, Margot. I definitely sometimes am defensive when I get feedback right away, and then you have to process it and kind of work through it because it's a hard thing to do. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And thank you so much for bringing up the point of like, what you do is not who you are. I have to say I meant to include something on that and I didn't. So thank you for doing that. That's something I've just learned. It's like Margot said, it's so easy to define who you are through what you do. And then if you experience challenges there, it kind of rocks your sense of identity. So I'm actually going to dig into that a little bit more later, but thank you, Margot. Anyone else want to share some feedback that really helped you or your perspective on feedback or anything on that topic? Ooh, Amber. Amber wrote a great comment in the chat about The stronger her reaction to feedback, the more she knows to impact where and why my reaction is coming from. Yes, 100%. That is so true. Okay. So feedback is a gift. It's so great. This weakness fixing versus investing in your strengths is something that I've become really believe. A few years ago, I became a Gallup certified strengths coach, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with Clifton Strengths. Margot, would you mind dropping a link to Clifton Strengths in the chat just for people who want to dig in a little bit more? But it's a discipline. It's kind of like Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or any one of those things. So if anyone wants to learn more about that, we can have that conversation another time. But one of the things that the Clifton Strengths teaches is about professional development. And often when you have like your annual review or you're getting feedback from your supervisor, often it can be focused on like your weaknesses and weakness fixing. And so your career development plan could be focused on like, okay, Gretchen's really bad at math. Like, let's spend some time fixing this. The opposite of that, and the one that Clifton Strengths promotes, is investing in your strengths. And so it can say, okay, you know, she's okay at graphic design. Like, let's give her the tools to invest a little bit more in that and see how far she can grow that. And it's really transformative to think about, instead of like focusing on the areas where you're weak, think about how your team can make up for those weaknesses. And then instead invest in what you're already good at, becoming truly great at it and getting even better. For me, that was a really freeing shift in my perception. I do this a lot with Margot and Rochelle, who are both on the call. Rochelle, because she's a data analyst and a researcher, and she's just so incredible. And so I team with her, and she does that kind of work. And then I use marketing and communication skills, graphic skills, storytelling skills to sort of build out what she's already done. And with Margot is an extrovert, and I'm more on the introverted side. And so if we're going to a meeting or something, or we're at a conference, I'll do the conference example. If we're at a conference, I find them really fun, but also energy draining, especially the networking parts. And so I can pair up with Margot, who's an extrovert, who's great at networking, who loves meeting new people. And I have an incredibly rewarding experience because she's doing the heart and what, in my opinion, is the heavy lifting of networking, but it's coming natural to her and really brings her energy. And so that's just a way of kind of thinking about how you can partner or team or collaborate with people to let their strengths shine through while you're also working, like sharing your own strengths. Yes, Rochelle added something in the chat about collaboration, and it's so freeing when you find people that you can collaborate with like that, because it just is such a rewarding way to work. So I would encourage all of you to think about that. I have my eye on the clock, and I think I only have 14 minutes left. So I'm going to move ahead to the next slide, which is about failure and resilience. Gosh, a couple of years now, at the Center for Economic Development, we did a project around failure and resilience for entrepreneurs. And the thing about failure is there's so much shame associated with it, right? When you fail at something, sometimes you just want to curl up in a little ball and hide yourself away from the world and feel ashamed that you failed at something, especially if you did it publicly. And so for entrepreneurs, for someone whose job is they're an entrepreneur, is tied to this failure, it can really rock your identity, and it's even compounded. And that's a terrible feeling. And so through this project, we interviewed a number of entrepreneurs about their experiences with failure. And all of them said that the thing that got them through was their community, was finally kind of uncurling from that little ball and exiting the dark cave that they hid themselves away in, and reaching out and telling someone, I'm having a really hard time. I failed at this, I'm having trouble managing this. And so it's the community, the people around you, who can help you move through failure. The other thing we learned is that the only real failure is the failure to learn. So if you look at someone who is sort of like at the top of their chosen profession or whatever it is, whether they're an athlete or a politician or a researcher, whatever they might be, if they're at the height of their skills and abilities, 100% they failed multiple times along the way. There's no way they got to where they are without failing. We just don't see those because we haven't been part of their journey. But what people do is when you fail, you learn from it, you use it as kind of a data point, something that helps guide you forward on your path, that you can learn from it and move forward. And then, so if you don't look at failure as like an end all be all of like, I failed and it's over, but something to think about, address, learn from, and move forward with, you'll be so much stronger. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what resilience is. Does anyone want to share a failure? And that's it. It's kind of scary, but challenging someone, just one person, maybe two, to share a way that they
Gretchen. It's Heather Kavanaugh. I wanted to first say thanks for being here. It's so awesome hearing from you, and I love everything you've been talking about. And I'm sure I have plenty of failures. I have to think about it for a second, but I love that you're talking about this. And I was listening to a podcast with Adam Grant recently, and he was talking about how all of our companies and organizations want us to be innovative. And there's no way to be innovative unless you embrace and almost celebrate failure, because you have to try new things. Some of them are going to fail. So it's like, yes, this one failed. We learned from it. Let's move on, because then you're going to get to that success. And so I really appreciate your bringing this subject up.
Thanks, Heather. Yes, 100%. And also all of you, you have to, Heather's the reason I'm here. A year plus ago, I was telling her about my little trepidation around public speaking, and she told me about a year where she said yes to every single public speaking engagement she was offered, and how it helped her become more comfortable. And so I emulated that, and so me being here today is part of that. So thank you, Heather.
Oh, I love it. And you're totally rocking it. Like, this is so great. So nice job.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share a failure? Okay, moving on to the next slide. I'm just going to touch on this really quickly. Be curious, explore our world and the things that draw you to them. There's so much to learn and so much to do. And I think curiosity and following that curiosity is what leads us to fun and important things, whether it's just something that you are drawn to because you enjoy it, or something that you're drawn to and it's a string you need to pull on because it could inform your next career move. Whatever it is, if you're curious about something, give yourself the time to explore it more. That's what keeps life interesting. Next slide. Okay, shine theory is one of my favorite things. It's the practice of mutual investment with the premise that if I don't shine, you don't shine. Some people think it was coined by Beyonce. There's a researcher who has done some work around it, and I'm terrible in forgetting her name. It's Anna something. But really, it's a commitment to collaborating with rather than competing against other people, especially women. And so this was a real perspective changer for me. Is I think I first stumbled on this term when I was younger in my career, and sometimes you can feel competitive with people, or you can look at someone who's achieved something that you would consider a success and feel envy around it. And that's not a really good way to feel. So if you kind of shift it and you give yourself permission to celebrate that and to think about, when this person shines, I shine too. When I shine, they shine too. And to work collaboratively towards success instead of competing against each other, it's really, really freeing. And if you can, you should surround yourself with people who feel this way. I would say one of the most rewarding things that I do, or rewarding things for me, is seeing the people that I care about, that I'm invested in, succeeding and shining, achieving their goals. And it is just an endlessly good feeling to sort of bask in their glow and their shine than it is to feel envy or feel less than, because just because someone else is succeeding, it doesn't mean that you're less than. It just means they're succeeding and you'll succeed differently and you have your own time to shine. So celebrate that. Next slide. All right, and I wanted to save enough time for this because I'm hoping we can chat a little bit. So say the thing, show up. I guess that's probably two concepts, but growing up, I feel like I was a pretty stoic young person. I read a lot of Jack London growing up and like male-focused adventure stories. And so, I didn't always like say the sappy thing. And I'm not sure what shifted it for me, but I, within the last couple of years, realized like how important it is to say what's on your mind or say how you feel about someone. And so I've made it a practice of sending like incredibly sappy birthday texts or Slacks. My coworkers know that they've been on the receiving end of these. And outside of birthdays, you should also try to say the thing and tell people what you appreciate, or you notice that they've done something good, or how they made you feel, if they made you feel good, or something they've done that inspires you. Because people, I guess that's part of giving feedback. It doesn't have to be feedback, but letting people know how you feel and what they've done for you and made you feel, it's such a powerful thing. And we all need that positive encouragement. So if you want to be the person who's a giver, be the person who gives that positive encouragement and notices things about people and shares it with them, I think it's so important to do. And with that, also showing up. I mentioned I'm an introvert. It's so much easier for me to stay home with a good book, a fire, my dog on my lap. That's probably my happy place. But at the same time, you have to show up for the people in your life. You have to be present. You should be there. That really, really matters. And so you want to show up for people, they'll show up for you. There's a book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And it's about takers, matchers, and givers. I'm just going to read an excerpt because I haven't read this yet. Someone just recommended it to me and I cannot wait to read it because I think it sounds perfect. So this is a little excerpt from it. For generations, we've focused on the individual drivers of success: passion, hard work, talent, and luck. But today, success is increasingly dependent on how we interact with others. It turns out that at work, most people operate as either takers, matchers, or givers. Whereas takers strive to get as much as possible from others and matchers aim to trade evenly, givers are the rare breed of people who contribute to others without expecting anything in return. These styles have a surprising impact on success. Although some givers get exploited and burn out, the rest achieve extraordinary results across a wide range of industries. That's pretty cool. Like I said, I haven't read it yet. I'm really excited to read it. But my point with this is I wanted to ask everyone who's here today to think about someone you've been meaning to say something to but haven't, or of something that you can give for someone else with no expectation of return. Basically, how can you reach out and share your good vibes and your energy and do something from someone else? So that is my call to action, and my challenge for all of you today is, other than owning your greatness, is to be a giver and say the thing or show up. So with that, I'm done with my presentation part. It looks like we have 5 minutes left. And so I wanted to open up for people either to share what they're going to give or ask questions or general comments.
Hi, this is Bianca. Thank you so much. Hi. Great talk. I feel like an hour wasn't enough.
It went by too fast.
Yeah, it's good. And I love when women are coming together. And I'm sure I'm actually on my mobile device, so I can't see if there's any men in this chat, but it's just so liberating and community strengthening when women are helping each other. I feel like it's a very fortifying thing. That for whatever reason, I feel like this group is probably, higher minded and doesn't do it, but it does happen. I have kind of seen that sort of vibe of like just not being helpful occasionally, not so much at ACS. And it's just wonderful. This talk is another example of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's wonderful. What you said about your team at ACS makes me think you have a lot of psychological safety, which I think I mentioned earlier, but it's a term we use at CED also, where people feel safe being their authentic selves and they can fail and they know it's okay. And that's wonderful.
Yeah, this is Heather again. I would echo what Bianca said. I so appreciate setting aside this time to have these kind of conversations. They're so important. And I appreciate, Gretchen, you leading it. And I want to offer for anybody, and Gretchen, this includes you, if anybody wants to read the Adam Grant book that you just recommended, I'd be happy to purchase the books for everybody, and then we could have a discussion. I love doing that. And I feel like this is the kind of group that might enjoy doing that too. So if you're interested, email me. I will get you a copy, and then we can find time to discuss it.
Heather, that is so generous of you. I've already downloaded it on my Kindle, but I would be thrilled to join a conversation around that book. So please include me.
Awesome, I will.
Anyone else? Final thoughts?
Oh, this is Marie. I was just gonna say the thing. I like that because I find myself all the time. I think nice things about people, but I don't say them. And my husband, he'll sometimes make comments about asking for feedback on something. I'm like, oh yeah, I was thinking that was really cool that you did that, and I'm really impressed, but I didn't actually say it. And so
yes, I do that too. Ongoing challenge.
Yeah, so just extrapolating that across.
Well, I wanted to thank you, Marie-Louise, and both Heathers for inviting me here today. It's been really rewarding to hear from each of you and get to share some of these perception changes with you. And I just so appreciate being invited to be part of a group like this. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining. I really enjoyed this presentation. It was so different.
Thanks.
The prompts. It really helped spur conversation.
Cool.
We'll follow up with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.